Hi, happy Friday. Thanks for joining me. Today I'm going to be talking about the effect of gratitude on your brain and how that's related to yoga practice. Um, and let's see, it's Friday, it's Black Friday. Wow. Yeah, that's of course why I was thinking about gratitude, is because of yesterday. Um, But one of the things I think about Black Friday also is like it's a nice holiday to boycott in terms of, turning away from some of those values that take us away from actually what creates happiness, which is sense of inner peace and connection to yourself, and sort of reinforce those behaviors that actually are demonstrated to not increase happiness and satisfaction. It's just sort of searching for it, running around for it outside of yourself. And certainly that's a long tradition, that's a long-standing understanding, and part of the yoga tradition is this idea of searching outside of ourselves for something that brings happiness is just a dead end. So I mean, that's such a basic fundamental lesson from the yoga tradition. And it doesn't mean there aren't good deals, but it can be very helpful. It can be very helpful to focus on some of the ideas from yesterday, some of the gratitude ideas from yesterday, and less on the seeking behavior. Which brings me to dopamine. And dopamine is something interesting to talk about in terms of how gratitude changes the function of dopamine in the brain. So dopamine is the seeking neurotransmitter. And so we tend to rely on it to look for satisfaction outside of ourselves. So when you use something like gratitude, self-compassion, it tends to reinforce the dopamine circuits internally. So you're internalizing that locus of control, which is so important in terms of happiness and mental health. Okay, so what's going on with gratitude? There's many different, there's been a lot of different research on gratitude, many different studies. I found an interesting one out of Korea that I thought was really, kind of culturally interesting. I lived in Asia for 4 years, and this Korean study, they focused on gratitude towards your parents, which I was like, wow, that is a mixed bag for a lot of Westerners. But in Asian cultures, it's considered just sort of this filial obligation or connection. And they demonstrated that with that gratitude towards your parents, there was a increased in positive affect and self-regulation, as well as pro-social behavior and better self-regulation, positive affect. Oh, pro-social behavior, positive affect, resilience. That was the one I forgot. And more resilience. And what are these related to in the brain? Of course, the prefrontal cortex, and the connectivity across the prefrontal cortex. So sometimes they're kind of moving away. The neuroscientists are kind of moving away from this structural bias, like which parts of the brain do what, to more of what they really think is happening, which is connectivity. So if the circuits are working well. So the prefrontal cortex circuits, they demonstrated in this one particular study, which I'll post it after I finish the live stream, that functional connectivity across the frontal cortex was greater. Okay, so that's one study. Another study, one of the most famous studies on gratitude, is this one where they had people do a writing intervention where they would write about their gratitude, write gratitude letters. After 3 months, they had sort of they did some functional MRIs and showed, again, that greater prefrontal cortex activation. And they also had more lasting neural sensitivity to gratitude, which is kind of interesting too. Like as you remember that, it's sort of like neurons that fire together, wire together. You've probably heard that before. So the idea is as you come back over into that behavior again, the circuit is there and it lights up again. And there was some connection with the nucleus accumbens, which is an important circuit in the brain that has to do with seeking and behaviors that are related to survival. So there's some, that's one of the most famous studies. So I'll post those 2 studies. I think that's all I'm going to talk about in terms of research. There's a lot more, but I'll post those 2 studies so you can see a little bit about what the research is saying. Now, Western science is so good at looking outside of ourselves, sort of looking at what the brain is doing when you're doing gratitude and, sort of doing these very simple gratitude exercises. What Eastern science, I would say, has been traditionally much better at is helping us shift that awareness within and looking like which part of the mind, which level of the mind, going deeper and deeper into the koshas is where you're accessing that gratitude. I remember being a small child and being, I kind of hated Thanksgiving because I knew we were going to have to go around the table, and well, for many reasons, including there was way too much alcohol with the adults, but but one of them was we would have to go around the table and say what we were grateful for, and I always kind of dreaded that moment because I felt like I was like a naughty schoolgirl and I had to talk about what I was grateful for. So, I think that this idea of looking outside of ourselves or like counting the external things that we're grateful for it has some limitations, of course. And what the Eastern traditions would say is as you internalize that gratitude deeper and deeper till it becomes a feeling of gratitude for the source, right? Which also you could translate that to devotion or surrender. If we start going deeper and deeper into those parts of ourselves, that's actually where we will see the most neuroplastic changes. We'll see the most behavioral changes and attitudinal changes, and actually find the greater levels of joy and contentment. So I would like to see the Western research get a little more specific in terms of the way it's looking at gratitude, not just sort of what we're grateful for in this generic kind of way, but if we can go deeper into which parts of ourselves are actually experiencing gratitude, going beyond the chitta, beyond this sort of superficial level of mind, deeper and deeper into deeper reflective deeper self-reflective capacities, deeper levels of awareness. I think we would see some interesting results if and when that happens. So those are some ideas today. I want to wrap up. I want to thank you all for being here. It's nice to see you, Libby and Nikki and Sandy. Yeah, thanks, Libby. Yes, embodied gratitude. I totally hear you on that. I think that's where we really get it. We really start to connect with it. Okay, I'll be back next Friday. Keep an eye out for my newsletter. I missed this week, but I'll be back on Wednesday. Take care. Namaste.